course, made decisions to double the level of income support for job seekers, and we are also going to ease the restrictions in terms of partner income to ensure that those with partners at a certain income level are not negatively or not negatively impacted by the level of income support available to them. So these are all things that we will be putting forward as part of our next package in the next few days.
On that point you raised there about the partner income, can you clarify this? What was actually passed by the Parliament on Monday? At the moment, if someone loses their job, but their partner is earning more than $50,000, do they get anything?
48,000.
48,000. Do they get anything?
Well, I mean, the current partner income test kicks in. Like essentially, you move out of the system once your partner earns more than 48,000. The Parliament on the Monday gave the Families and Social Services Minister Anne Ruston the power to adjust those thresholds and typo rights and a whole range of things by regulation, and that is what we will do. We will ease those restrictions on a partner income to ensure that more Australians can get the income support.
Up to what income level?
Well, again, I mean, the specifics will be announced in the next few days.
Okay, what are we talking around $76,000? I think that was the upper limit, wasn't it?
Well, again, the specifics will be announced in the next few days.
All right. Now, this hibernation plan, you've talked about it there. This will be announced in the coming days as well as part of all of this. Can I just get you to explain what this will mean for small business? Many of them are making very difficult decisions right now as to whether to cut their losses and fold because they've still got all the bills, your insurance premiums, your lease payments, your rent, and so on, even though they've got no money coming in. What's the idea here?
Well, I mean, business is facing a perfect storm, falling revenues while, as you say, fixed costs remain. Significant component of fixed costs are the rental obligations that businesses face. And I mean, across all of we're focused on helping bring down the cost, helping defer costs where that is appropriate, working with the banks, working with state and territory governments around some of the things that we can do ourselves in our capacity as landlords for businesses in some of the properties that are owned by government, but also making sure that essentially the idea here is to spread the pain as fairly and as equitably as possible to maximise the chance for as many Australians as possible, as many businesses as possible to be there on the other side when we expect a very strong recovery.
Spreading the pain is an interesting phrase because it does mean everyone's going to have to carry the burden here somehow. I know the state and federal...
Well, that is the reality of it. That is the reality of it.
State and federal treasurers are meeting today to talk about rental situations. So we saw this week Solomon Lew, the retail billionaire, he's refusing to pay rent to shopping centres on behalf of all of his retail stores. Is that what he should be doing? Is that what tenants should be doing?
Look, I'm not going to provide commentary on individual business people. We're looking at this in a systemic way, and the truth is, as a country, we're facing an incredibly significant challenge. But we are all in this together, and we've got to make sure that all of us have the best possible chance to be there successful at the other side. And that is why we do need to find the best possible way to share the level of pain that we have to incur as fairly and as equitably and as sustainably as possible.
And
that's not easy. This is a very difficult
very complicated.
circumstance.
It's very complicated. You've also got the situation where a lot of self-funded retirees might have an investment property. That's their income. If the tenant can't be evicted because they're out of work, where does that leave that retiree?
Well, I mean, the reality, though, is in terms of landlords of commercial premises, for example, I mean, if the business is no longer able to pay the rent, there is limited capacity to attract another tenant right now. So the economic reality is, all other things being equal, without some level of I guess, concerted effort to spread the pain fairly and equally, left to their own devices, I mean, chances are that the landlord will not be able to secure any income.
What about residential?
Over the next few months
what about
anyway.
residential?
Well, look, I mean, and these are, I mean, tenancies are predominantly, well, they are regulated at the state level, and residential tenancies in particular, but we are working with state and territory governments through the National Cabinet in relation to all of these things. I mean, obviously we would want to see certainty for tenants in terms of their accommodation through this period, and we want to ensure that the arrangements that are put in place, as I say, are as fair and as equitable as possible to all parties and are sustainable over a 6-month period.
A couple of other things. New South Wales and Victoria have signalled they will soon move to stage 3 restrictions. Just so people have some idea of what this means, can you tell us, do you know what stage 3 restrictions involve?
Well, look, I mean, I let the states of New South Wales and Victoria explain for themselves what they plan to do. I should just say that the National Cabinet has been very successful in working in a nationally coordinated fashion, and I think I'm very confident that that will continue. It is also true that individual jurisdictions are a bit further down the curve in terms of the spread of this virus, and therefore it is likely to be justified that individual jurisdictions will calibrate their responses accordingly. We've got to remind ourselves, I mean, this is a war on two fronts. I mean, yes, I mean, our mission, our health mission is to save lives by slowing down the spread of the virus. We won't be able to stop the spread, but we are committed to slowing the spread to ensure that our hospitals are able to, are in the best possible position to deal with a consistent, constant flow of patients rather than to be completely overwhelmed.
But what do you say to the argument that shutting more down now will help slow that spread more effectively? You'd be hearing this from some businesses as well.
Well, we are making our judgments based on the medical advice from the chief medical officers from around Australia. We're not going to start gratuitously shutting down businesses because we are under political pressure. I mean, in the end, it is a war on two fronts, and shutting the economy down when there is no advice to do so would also have health consequences as well as social and obvious economic consequences. So, I mean, we've got to continue to make sensible decisions here. We do want to keep as many businesses in business as possible, as many Australians in jobs as possible. Those Australians who lose their job, we want them to be appropriately supported. But we're not going to start closing businesses down just because there's political pressure when the medical advice is that that is not required or not advisable.
Okay, but there is conflicting medical advice on this, as I'm sure you'd be aware.
Well, in this sort of situation, a lot of people are anxious. This is a crisis. Of course, there are lots of different noises, but and lots of different voices, I should say. But we are working with the chief medical officers from around Australia, federal and state, whose job it is to provide this sort of advice to government. And we're trying to make the best possible decisions in what is a very difficult situation. But it's not. If we were to shut the whole economy down, so when would we open it again? And what would be the consequences on the way through? And let's say we shut it down to the point where nobody moves and indeed the virus completely stops. And then what, we reopen it and it starts spreading again? Like, I mean, these things might seem simple. They're not that simple. In the end, we don't believe we can stop the spread. We do want to slow the spread. I mean, if Australia is part of the same world as everybody else, arguably we were more exposed than others to the risk of returning travellers from China. We put border restrictions in place from 1 February. And look, I mean, Australia is... Other countries are much further advanced with many more cases, many more deaths than what we have seen here in Australia. So I do believe that our measures so far have been successful in slowing the spread. But yes, I mean, we've got to continue to make sensible judgments moving forward, and we will.
Let me ask you finally, the main message to everyone is stay at home when you can, where you can. That's how you slow the spread. What about the public service? The federal public service, a lot of them still are having to turn up to work. They've not been told to work from home if they can. A lot of them are very anxious about this. Why is there no directive for federal public servants? If they can work from home, work from home.
Well, if they can work from home, they should work from home. I mean, but there is a lot of work that needs to be done right now by the Federal Public Service to support, the government's efforts, in relation to protecting people's health,
but
providing
those who aren't involved in those sorts of jobs, is your directive for them to work at home if they can?
I'm not. This is going to be done through an orderly fashion based on, again, the appropriate advice. I'm not going to provide a directive through insiders as much as you would want me to do that.
No, I'm not asking you to do it through the show necessarily, but through the normal channels, Minister, to those very anxious public servants.
Obviously there is an Australian Public Service Commission which has got responsibilities in this regard, and they rely on appropriate advice, and where that can be done and where it's appropriate, I'm sure that will be done.
Finance Minister Mathias Cormann, thanks for joining us this morning.
Always good to talk to you.
All right, back to the panel in a moment. First, as tens of thousands of Australians lined up outside Centrelink offices this week